I cry when I'm angry, right? Or I'm an angry crier. It's not because I'm sad. It's because I'm just so angry. Okay, hi, everybody. Thanks for coming back if you've been here before. Or hi, welcome if you're new. My name's Mickey. I'm a therapist, and we talk about therapy things on this channel. And today, we're talking about attachment styles again because I have a lot to say about attachment styles. We are making a series where we're talking about each of the attachment styles and kind of working our way through it. We have already talked about anxious attachment. If you haven't watched it yet, you should. It's a lovely video. So I'm going to put that up here. But we are talking about avoidant attachment today because first of all, a lot of you felt like you were personally attacked by the anxious attachment video. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to read anybody to filth, but if it makes you feel any better, I'm going to read myself to filth today. So we are talking about avoidant attachment because it's sort of commonly like the pair to anxious attachment, and because there are a lot of questions about like, what is attachment styles? Is that real even? And how are you supposed to tell what your own attachment style is? There's also some questions about like how to fix that. So fix that. We're going to talk about that later. But just like last time, I'm going to talk about some sort of basic attachment theory stuff. If you already know this or you watched it in the last video, I will put a timestamp here that you can skip past the foundational stuff and just get right to the good stuff. Oh, also, I need to give you a disclaimer that this is not therapy, cannot be therapy. However, if you'd like to find a therapist of your very own, you're welcome to always use the links in the description. I don't get paid for those. I just love y'all very much and I want you to live your best life. So use those if you need them. Okay, so let's talk about attachment theory. Mary Ainsworth and John Bowlby are often spoken about as the sort of pioneers of the attachment theory work. They used an experiment that is called the strange situation that essentially put kids in a weird situation where their primary caregiver and the baby are in a room. Primary caregiver left, and they observed the baby's observations. There were a couple of different behaviors that they noted as being consistent with particular types of attachment. That was the basis for attachment theory. One of the wonderful books that I used as research for this series, I'm going to put all of them in the description. The quote that they used to describe attachment, though, I think is very succinct. Attachment refers to the enduring tie that one person has with a parent who fulfills needs for safety and comfort. This is essentially the way that we as infants learn to find safety and comfort in the world, right? When we're babies, when we're little earthworms, if we have a poopy diaper, then we cry. And then if we're hungry, then we cry. Or if we're uncomfortable, we cry, right? If we have colic, we cry. When our parents are responsive to those needs, they teach us implicitly that the world is a safe place. When we have needs, someone will respond to them, right? It's essentially the basis of learning that if you need help, that you can ask for it, right? This is why it's so important in our adult relationships, because I know for a lot of us, we're like, I'm not a baby. Who cares about my attachment style? Except that it matters a lot in your adult relationships. Our primary attachments as children teach us a lot about the way that we can or should behave, the ways that are safe for us to behave in relationships. So when we grow up, we sort of accidentally, implicitly mirror that behavior with the folks that we want to be close with, like our partners, our friends. Sometimes this can show up even in like coworkers. It definitely shows up with family. So it affects a lot of areas of our life. So knowing what our attachment style is, knowing the coping mechanisms that we tend to turn to, that's all going to be helpful information for us in our self-improvement journey. Also, if I pull weird karate moves in this video, it's because there's a bug in here and I am terrified that I'm going to accidentally swallow it. Okay, so let's talk about the fun stuff. Avoidant attachment. We talked with anxious attachment about how when caregivers are inconsistent or, hot and cold with children, that is going to form an anxious attachment. Whereas with avoidant attachment, you're going to have caregivers who pretty consistently were unavailable, they were absent, or sometimes they discourage emotional vulnerability. Sometimes they punish you for having emotional needs or just like needs generally. Because babies can tell when they are not being cared for by somebody who wants to care for them. They can sense as early as 4 to 6 weeks of life if their caregiver is smiling at them. So when your primary caregivers were people who told you, rub some dirt on it, toughen up, all of that kind of stuff, that contributes to a sense of avoidant attachment because essentially you learn that your needs are burdensome or that it's just not safe for you to depend on other people. There is a quote actually from a book that I really want to read you guys because I think it's great. The book is called Attachment Theory and Research in Clinical Work with Adults. This says, the avoidant infant is forced to learn without complex thoughts or language to suppress his or her attachment behavior in order to receive adequate or minimal care. Essentially what we're talking about here is when you were an itty bitty teeny tiny little baby, that even things like crying because your diaper was full meant that you were going to receive like pushback, right? Your parents were going to be emotionally unavailable to you. And so in order to get your basic needs fulfilled, you had to learn how to suck everything back down, which is obviously dysfunctional and very harmful to you, but also to the way that you're going to engage in relationships as adults. So folks who are avoidantly attached are commonly going to have a discomfort with closeness. Obviously, it's also going to show up as a hypervigilance about needing other people. We talked about anxious attachment. Those folks have a hypervigilance about being abandoned, right? There is some of that in avoidant attachment, but often what we're going to see is this sense of hypervigilance and like about like, have I accidentally landed myself in a position where I'm dependent on or need other people? That creates a great deal of distress for folks who are avoidantly attached. Something that I thought was really interesting actually is that avoidantly attached people are going to respond to distress with this inflated sense of self-ego and like a facade of confidence and defensiveness. So where anxiously attached people are going to excessively seek reassurance, right? To say like, are you upset at me? Are you sure that you're not mad at me? I saw something on your face and that made me feel like you were upset at me. Avoidantly attached people are first of all going to detach from their own emotions and from the emotions of other people. But also, for example, if your friend canceled on you, instead of saying, did you cancel on me because you're mad at me? Are you sure? Are you sure? You're sure? These people are going to say either to the person that canceled or to themselves, you know what? I don't care because I'm really busy. I have a lot of shit that I need to get done. And I gave you some time in my really busy schedule and you disrespected me by canceling on me. And so you know what? Fuck you. I don't really care because now I have free time that I get to work on all the stuff that I have to do. And I don't have to waste my time having lunch or having coffee with you, right? It's me. Jesus, I hate this video. This is obviously a very different reaction, and this is why it's noteworthy and like important to talk about these things because that reaction is a hallmark of avoidantly attached people, but this is why it's a limiter in our ability to form vulnerability and closeness because instead of being honest that like, wow, that really hurt my feelings. What we do is say, I don't need you, right? This is why I don't hitch my wagon to other people because people let me down. Sometimes this is also the thing where we're going to set standards like so impossibly astronomically fucking high that then when people inevitably fall short of that, we say, see, I told you. This is why I don't let people help me because everyone always disappoints me. Everyone lets me down and no one can do things as good as I do them. But the problem is that it locks us in this place of, first of all, being fucking responsible for everything. Now no one can help you because you're not willing to receive help, but also that you're alienating the people in your life, right? This facade of like an inflated ego is in fact very alienating for the people that love you, if you can imagine. And so it creates this sort of self-perpetuating cycle where, for example, anxious attachment folks constantly seek this reassurance to the degree that sometimes their loved ones are like, fine, you know what? I'm upset at you now because you won't stop asking me this question. And now I'm upset because we've been having the same conversation about like, am I mad at you for the last 30 minutes? Whereas avoidantly attached people, they're going to set these standards so high. And then when people inevitably fail, they're like, see, told you so. We do this subconscious thing where we accidentally sort of set ourselves up to validate the deepest fear that we already have in order to kind of hang on to this coping mechanism that we learned in infancy is our safest way to survive. Oh, one other thing that I thought was noteworthy is that there is actually a crossover between folks who are avoidantly attached and folks who have been diagnosed with schizoid or avoidant personality disorders, which is, I think, kind of a noteworthy thing. If you have any of those diagnoses, or if you notice that you're avoidantly attached, it can be good to look for signs and symptoms of, either or. Let's talk about some signs that you might be avoidantly attached, but in a like real life example, right? So sometimes avoidantly attached people are going to be the folks who have like the quantity over quality thing. Instead of having like a few deep relationships, we have a bunch of relationships that are surface level so that we don't have to talk about scary things like feelings. We might tend toward less intimate relationships. Also, if you tend to be the person who cuts and runs, that is an avoidantly attached thing. Also common for avoidantly attached people is the thing where we tell a story that we think is really funny about our childhood. And actually everyone else at the table is like horrified because it's a really traumatizing thing. The reason that avoidantly attached people are, apt to do this is because we dissociate from our emotions, right? We're also intellectualizers. So instead of feeling things, we think things. This is because our sort of inherent mechanism for dealing with it is by sucking the emotion back down, and I don't feel anything, right? So I can talk about it, I can laugh about it even, but if you're asking me to really get deep into the emotion, like, no, pass, I'm not doing that. One of the other hallmark signs of folks who are avoidantly attached is going to be the folks who are perfectionists and folks who are also self-punishers. If you're very like punitive, you're very hard on yourself, that's often an avoidant attachment thing, because if you can only rely on yourself, then you better be fucking perfect, right? It's a way of trying to deal with the scary realization that we are the only people that we rely on in life. This is also the thing where we're like so unbothered, right? I don't feel anything. Then now we feel nothing, actually. And so if you had a hard time in your initial go at therapy with being emotional or with expressing emotion, if you felt like, I can talk about my traumas and I feel nothing, and that's not making anything better, this might be why. Avoidant attached folks have effectively turned off their emotions and like sucked them all back down. For what it's worth, also, this can contribute to a feeling of loneliness in your relationships. Even if we do have like a safe and healthy partnership, generally speaking, we can feel a sense of isolation in those relationships because we might not be being quite as honest about our emotions as we would like to be. Sometimes not even in a conscious way, but because we just don't know that that's how we feel. So doing that work around the emotional expression and trying to get in your body rather than thinking the things is a great way to deal with that sense of loneliness. Another thing about this that is going to show up for avoidantly attached folks is when we have like if people who are being emotional or people that we feel like are being like weepy, if that gives you the ick, I have bad news for you. You might have avoidant attachment. Essentially, this shows up as like a disgust about other people's emotions, about people exhibiting emotions, about people having needs, and also about interdependence, right? When people feel comfortable to rely on others, it can provoke this sense of like visceral disgust in avoidantly attached folks. Actually, we talked about this on the podcast. If you don't watch the podcast, you should, because it's great. Erin and I took a quiz to talk about our own attachment styles, so I'll put that in the description. Avoidantly attached folks are also going to do this sort of like a hopes and dreams who thing, right? If you've ever said to yourself or somebody else, if you have no expectations and you can never be disappointed, that might be an avoidantly attached thing. It also can show up as keeping your therapist at arm's length, by the way. Being somebody who doesn't super trust other people can mean that we don't super trust people like therapists, because that's an environment where we're going to have to be very honest about our emotions. So we can kind of like we can spend a long time actually in therapy giving our therapist the runaround about what we're feeling and blah, 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 because we just don't feel safe to be honest about our actual feelings and open that door for things like judgment, and especially to be let down, right? The fear of being let down and having somebody sort of emotionally abandon you or prove that you can't ask them to be responsive to your needs is the kryptonite of avoidantly attached people. So we're going to go to great lengths to avoid putting ourselves in that situation and having the opportunity to be let down. So that's why we can be very distant and very emotionally cold. Okay, as far as coping is concerned for avoidantly attached folks, one thing that we're going to notice is that these folks, first of all, if you're a person who has ever said, like, I cry when I'm angry, right? Or I'm an angry crier. It's not because I'm sad. It's because I'm just so angry. That does happen. And sometimes you might be trying to mask a sense of shame or embarrassment or fear about your emotions. So when we become very emotionally flooded and we cry, we tell people it's because I'm angry. It's also common for avoidantly attached people actually to turn fear and hurt into hostility instead. So that's going to show up a lot. Something I found in the research that was really interesting actually is that avoidantly attached people tend to have mysterious somatic symptoms. So if you're a person who has had sleep problems, pain problems, other like sort of mysterious health issues that you have no other explanation for, it can sometimes be that you have essentially like a lifetime's worth of emotions that have just been like shoved back down, that are leaking out of your body, literally in the form of like pain or other somatic issues, other health issues. And so getting clear about your emotions and like really getting in your body can be like useful exploration in trying to like unfuck your shit, literally. Last time I read you guys some quotes from a lovely book, and I want to read you some more about avoidant attachments. Avoidants are often going to say things to themselves like, I am somewhat uncomfortable being close to others. I find it difficult to trust them completely, difficult to allow myself to depend on them, and I'm nervous when anyone gets too close, or others want me to be more intimate than I feel comfortable being. If any of those things resonate with you, I want to encourage you to explore your attachment style. And especially if you already have a therapist, this is a great conversation to have with them about like, hey, some therapy lady read me to filth on the internet and I'm thinking that maybe I have some avoidant attachment issues. So I would like to talk about that. That can be a great jumping off place for you. I do want to sort of offer a caveat, however, because I think avoidantly attached people get kind of a bad rap, especially because there's this attitude that avoidantly attached people, right, because they're often labeled as like cold or emotionally distant, that makes you an asshole or that makes you like unworthy of relationships. That's not true. That's not true at all. It is simply a different way of dealing with a deep-seated fear about being abandoned, about being told that you're burdensome, and about not being able to regularly expect that people can show up for you and people can care for you. So just because somebody is dealing with it in a way that isn't like verbose or emotionally expressive doesn't mean that you suck or that you're inherently bad or that you are not worthy of connection and support. If anything, in fact, it's quite the opposite. Everybody who struggles with attachment issues, which let's be honest, it's fucking most of us. Very few people actually have secure attachments. If you do have secure attachment, like, bravo to your parents. God bless for you. But a lot of us are struggling with attachment issues in our own right. And so I want to encourage you to be fucking nice to yourself. This is very difficult for avoidantly attached folks, especially because we tend to be self-punitive and very evaluative and to be, to have a hard time with getting in touch with our emotions generally, but especially to get in touch with a sense of kindness and compassion for ourselves. So I want to encourage you, if you watch this video and you're like, wow, I'm awful. No, you're not. You're a person and you're struggling just like the fucking rest of us, and you're allowed to be in process, right? That's our whole ding dang fucking lives, is being in process and continuing to work towards a better version, a more evolved version, a more functional version, a more safe version of ourselves, for ourselves and other people. And where you're at in process is perfectly good. You don't need to prove anything to anyone to be worthy of relationships. You just are. Just simply by the fact that you exist, you are worthy of love and belonging, full stop. So since we talked about therapy, I also want to encourage you, especially if you already have a therapist or if you're going to look for one, finding a therapist who is able to practice emotion focused therapy. Internal family systems is a really popular one. And also there is an attachment theory-based modality that is called attachment-based family therapy. All of those can be great ways to address attachment issues specifically. But honestly, if you have avoidant attachment or attachment issues generally, a good trauma-informed clinician can go a long way, because ultimately that's what it is, right? You have a early and probably chronic childhood trauma that could use some unpacking and addressing. So good trauma-informed therapy is going to be a great bet. Also, you don't necessarily need those modalities. If you guys enjoyed the video, if you want to see more of the series, make sure that you subscribe. I'm also selfishly trying to get to 200K because my merch shop won't let me make things that you guys have been asking me for. So if you want to subscribe, that would be lovely. And also don't forget to like the video if you like the video, and share the video if you want to help the channel grow and to help each other grow. And I will see you guys next Saturday. Okay, bye.